The torches of Babylon burned all night long. They always did. This was a city that never slept. A city of hanging gardens and towering ziggurats, of merchants crying their wares in a dozen languages, of soldiers in bronze armor marching the wide avenues between walls so thick that chariots could race along their tops. Babylon was the center of the known world, and Darius the Mede had just inherited all of it. Into this city, years before, had come a young man from Jerusalem, a captive, a foreigner, a boy who had lost everything: his home, his family's land, the sound of Hebrew prayers rising from the temple courts. His name was Daniel, and somehow, in the strange mercy of God, he had risen, not by compromising who he was, not by forgetting where he came from, but by being exactly, stubbornly, quietly himself, a man of prayer, a man of wisdom, a man whose word could be trusted absolutely. Now Daniel was old. His hair had gone gray in the service of foreign kings. His hands, which had once been a boy's hands, were lined with decades of work and petition. And still, every morning and every evening, he knelt beside his open window, the one that faced west, toward Jerusalem, and he prayed. Everyone in the palace knew it, and that was about to become the most dangerous thing in the world. Darius the Mede reorganized his vast empire into 120 provinces, each one governed by a satrap. Over those satraps, he placed 3 administrators. And over those 3, he was considering placing Daniel, a foreigner, an exile, a man of another god entirely. Daniel had distinguished himself above all the others because, as the scripture says, an excellent spirit was in him. This was not good news for the other administrators, or for the satraps. Ambition is a hungry thing, and the men around Daniel had been watching him for years, waiting for a crack in the stone. They went looking for grounds to bring a charge against him in his duties. But they could find nothing. No corruption, no negligence, no hidden ledger, no quiet bribe taken at dusk, no whispered deal in a back corridor of the palace. Daniel was, infuriatingly, honest. So they changed tactics. If they couldn't find fault with his work, they would find fault with his God. They came to Darius with flattery on their lips and poison in their hands. All the administrators, the satraps, the prefects, the counselors, all of them together, a great show of unity. King Darius, live forever, they said, and their voices were smooth as oil on stone. They proposed a decree. For 30 days, no one in the kingdom should pray or make a petition to any god or man except Darius himself. Anyone who violated the decree would be thrown into the den of lions. Darius was pleased. It was the kind of decree that made a king feel his own power, feel the edges of his own divinity. He signed it. He made it law. And because it was the law of the Medes and Persians, it could not be revoked, not even by the king himself. Now Daniel knew. Word traveled fast in the palace, and Daniel was nobody's fool. He understood exactly what had been done, and he understood exactly what it would cost him. He went home to his house, and he climbed the stairs, and he went to his room, the room with the window that faced Jerusalem, and he knelt down. 3 times that day he prayed and gave thanks before his God, as he had done from the beginning, just as he had always done. Think about what that moment cost him. He was not a young man who hadn't yet imagined dying. He had lived long enough to know what lions do. He had lived long enough to love his life, to value the morning light on the Euphrates, the smell of bread baking somewhere in the city, the particular quiet of an old man's evening. And he knelt down anyway, not defiantly, not with fire in his eyes and his jaw set hard, but with a kind of holy, settled peace, the peace of a man who has already decided, years and years ago, who he belongs to. The men who had set the trap were watching. Of course they were. And they found him there, praying, making petition before his God, and they rushed back to the king with it, their voices bright with manufactured outrage. "Did you not sign a decree?" they asked. And Darius knew. The moment the words left their mouths, he knew what he had done. He was greatly distressed. He set his mind to rescue Daniel, and he labored until sunset to find a way out. There was no way out. The law was the law, and as the sun dropped below the edge of the world, Darius gave the order. They brought Daniel to the mouth of the den. The stone beneath his feet would have been cold, worn smooth by use. The smell rising from the darkness below was old iron and animal musk. The warm, rank breath of something enormous and alive. The lions shifted in the dark, their movements a low, liquid sound of muscle and hunger. Darius stood at the edge. He looked at Daniel, and what he said was not the declaration of a conqueror. It was almost a prayer. May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you. Then Daniel was lowered in. A stone was brought and laid over the mouth of the den. The king sealed it with his own signet and with the signets of his lords, so that nothing could be changed concerning Daniel. And Darius went back to his palace. He could not eat. He sent away his musicians. He could not sleep. All night long, he lay in the darkness of his royal chambers while Daniel lay in another kind of darkness entirely. The scripture simply says, sleep fled from him. Kings have armies and treasure and power over life and death. And that night not one of those things could help Darius. He was just a man, awake and afraid, waiting for a morning he could not control. But in the den, something else was happening. At the first breaking of dawn, that pale, tentative light that precedes the sunrise, before even the birds have fully committed to the morning, Darius rose and ran to the den. He ran, the king of the Medes and Persians, in his robes, running through the early gray light, because he could not wait one more moment. When he reached the den, he cried out in a tone of anguish. That is the scripture's own word, anguish. Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions? And from the darkness, a voice came back. Calm, clear, alive. O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not harmed me, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you. O king, I have done no harm. Then Darius was exceedingly glad. Daniel was brought up out of the den, and no injury whatsoever was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. And Darius wrote to all the peoples and nations, the God of Daniel is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. What this story asks us to sit with is not only the miracle, though the miracle is staggering. It's the moment before the miracle. The moment when Daniel knelt by his open window, and there were no angels visible, no assurance yet given, no promise that the morning would come. There was only the habit of a lifetime, the daily turning towards something true, something holy, something larger than the empire outside his window. Faith is rarely the dramatic moment. It is the 1,000 ordinary moments that make the dramatic moment possible, the kneelings, the turnings, the small daily choices to remain who you are. Daniel didn't know what the night in the den would hold. He only knew who held the night. And in the end, that was more than enough.